The story of Laura Wilson and her family farm is ultimately a story about resilience, responsibility, and adaptation. For generations, the family built its agricultural operation around hard work, practical knowledge, shared responsibility, and a deep connection to the land. That stability was shaken by a serious equipment accident that left a central family member unable to continue his usual duties just as the farm was preparing for a demanding production season. Suddenly, responsibilities had to be redistributed, plans had to change, and the family faced pressure from every direction. What followed was more than an effort to keep the farm operating. It became an opportunity to reconsider how a traditional family business could respond to crisis, improve safety, strengthen its organization, and prepare the next generation for an increasingly complex agricultural future. A sudden crisis changes everything. The crisis began with a serious accident involving farm equipment at the family's repair and operations facility. A key member of the organization, who had long been responsible for technical knowledge and operational decisions, suffered severe injuries and required an extended period of recovery and rehabilitation. His absence immediately created a major gap because his responsibilities were closely connected to equipment, production planning, maintenance, and day-to-day decision-making. The timing made the situation even more difficult, as the farm was preparing for the spring planting season, when delays can affect an entire agricultural cycle. Instead of functioning according to its usual routines, the family suddenly had to reorganize its workforce and priorities. Laura Wilson and her husband stepped into broader leadership roles, while other family members adjusted their own plans to help keep the operation functioning. The accident exposed how heavily a large family farm can depend on a few experienced individuals. Pressure on production and finances. The disruption affected more than the family's daily schedule. The farm managed extensive acreage alongside livestock and other agricultural activities, meaning that a shortage of technical and managerial capacity could quickly influence planting, maintenance, harvesting, and crop planning. Early production results reportedly fell below the previous season, reflecting the combined effects of equipment difficulties, staffing changes, and disrupted procedures. Relationships with suppliers, maintenance providers, and other business partners also had to be reconsidered as the farm adjusted to new circumstances. The family therefore faced a complicated challenge, maintaining production while dealing with unexpected costs, changing responsibilities, and uncertainty about future operations. Laura recognized that the crisis demonstrated the importance of having systems that could continue working even when an experienced individual suddenly became unavailable. Rather than treating the disruption as an isolated family problem, she began viewing it as a broader organizational lesson about preparation, redundancy, training, and the need to reduce dependence on any single person. A 5-generation agricultural legacy. The farm's importance to the family cannot be understood without considering its history. Established by an earlier generation of the family, the operation grew gradually from a modest agricultural holding into a much larger enterprise combining crop production, livestock, machinery, irrigation, and modern farming practices. Each generation contributed something different, while the central principle remained the same. Younger family members learned by participating directly in the work. Laura grew up within this environment and began taking responsibility for livestock and farm-related activities at a young age. Her education later gave her additional knowledge in business and agricultural management, but much of her practical understanding came from working alongside her family. The farm was also gradually preparing for generational transition, with responsibilities being transferred in stages rather than through one sudden change. This made the accident especially significant because it accelerated a transition that had already been underway and forced the younger generation to assume responsibilities under unusually difficult circumstances. Laura's emerging leadership. Before the crisis, Laura had already become an important part of the farm's future. She was involved in managing leased land, coordinating production activities, and experimenting with modern agricultural techniques. Her approach combined the practical traditions of her family with newer ideas involving data, technology, communication, and more structured management. Her husband also became increasingly important to the operational side of the business, particularly when the family needed someone capable of overseeing technical and production responsibilities. The crisis transformed these developing roles into immediate leadership responsibilities, Laura had to coordinate people, contracts, production decisions, safety improvements, and communication, while also supporting her family through a difficult period. Her experience demonstrated that succession planning is not simply about transferring ownership. It also involves developing people who can make decisions, understand different parts of the operation, and respond when circumstances change unexpectedly. The crisis therefore became an intense test of whether the next generation was truly prepared to lead. From traditional farming to modern communication, Laura had also developed a broader role as an agricultural educator and communicator. She became known for explaining farming practices in accessible language and showing how modern agricultural technology could be incorporated into everyday production. Her work helped connect agricultural communities with people who had little direct experience of farming, while also demonstrating that farmers could take on roles beyond production itself. She represented a newer model in which an agricultural professional might simultaneously manage land, study business practices, explain technical subjects, communicate with communities, and contribute to educational initiatives. This approach strengthened her public profile but also added another dimension to her responsibilities. The crisis reinforced the importance of communication because people connected to the farm wanted to understand what had happened and how the operation would respond. Laura increasingly used her experience to discuss broader issues such as safety, succession, organizational resilience, and the challenges faced by modern family farms. Family and community become a support system. During the recovery period, the family's internal relationships became essential to maintaining the farm. Laura's husband took on greater responsibility for cultivation and operational quality, while other relatives returned or rearranged their schedules to contribute where needed. Laura's mother became particularly important in coordinating logistics, documentation, medical arrangements, mechanical services, and financial matters. The response also extended beyond the immediate household. Neighbors and fellow farmers shared machinery and storage resources, allowing the family to reduce interruptions during critical periods. Local organizations provided emotional and practical assistance, while agricultural groups helped connect the family with resources related to recovery and farm management. These efforts showed that rural resilience is rarely created by one individual. It depends on relationships that have been built over years. When a farm is deeply connected to its surrounding community, those relationships can become a crucial source of stability during periods when normal business systems are under strain. Safety becomes a central priority. One of the most important lessons from the crisis was the need to strengthen safety practices. The family began reconsidering how equipment maintenance, emergency procedures, worker training, and operational responsibilities were organized. Greater use of outside mechanical specialists reduced the pressure on family members to handle every technical responsibility themselves. Training was expanded to cover safe equipment operation, routine inspections, emergency response, and other practical procedures. The goal was not simply to react to the accident but to create systems that could help prevent similar problems and respond more effectively if unexpected situations occurred. The experience also highlighted a wider challenge in agriculture. Highly mechanized farms depend on powerful and complicated equipment, yet training and maintenance practices can vary significantly between operations. By treating safety as an essential part of management rather than an occasional requirement, the family began building a more structured operation in which responsibilities were clearer and technical risks were taken more seriously. Resilience and the future of the farm. The most significant outcome of the crisis was not simply the restoration of agricultural production, but the creation of a stronger foundation for the future. The family learned that tradition alone is not enough to protect a modern farm from unexpected disruption. Experience remains valuable, but it must be supported by documented procedures, professional expertise, safety systems, technology, clear succession planning, and strong community relationships. Laura's journey reflects the changing role of the modern farmer, who may be responsible not only for producing crops and managing livestock but also for coordinating people, interpreting data, communicating with the public, and preparing for long-term risks. The family farm emerged from the crisis with a renewed understanding of its strengths and vulnerabilities. Its experience demonstrates that resilience is not about avoiding every difficulty. It is about creating an organization capable of adapting when circumstances change, protecting its people, preserving its agricultural heritage, and continuing to evolve for the generations that follow.